Have you ever noticed how leadership training always promises to transform how you lead? But then a few months later, nothing's really changed inside your organization. The same misalignment, the same execution bottlenecks, the same leadership struggles. It kind of feels like pouring water into a leaky bucket.
And that's because most leadership training is designed to develop individuals, not fix the underlying issues of transferring that knowledge into your organization and those skills you learned into your daily interactions. Great leaders alone won't save a broken system. And we're not saying that individual leadership training isn't necessary or required. In fact, it most definitely is. This is just the next iteration, the next step in the journey. It's the actual implementation of all of the internal and outward facing tools you've gained in those programs and putting them to use across your organization in real life.
And this training isn't about making you a better leader. Well, it kind of is, but it's about using those tools and helping you make leadership a culture shift within your entire organization so that alignment, execution, and accountability don't depend on just a few people doing everything right, but shifts to transferring those skills to everyone, or at least a much broader audience. Because if we're being honest, true leadership isn't selfish, it's selfless. It's about developing long term impact, leaving a legacy of leadership skills and tools so that others emulate you or your leadership when you're not there. Now, this training is broken into three sections.
First of all, is leading with purpose. Most companies start with a great vision, but if purpose isn't embedded into decision making, accountability, and execution, it dies as the company grows. We help fix that.
Next is scaling and ownership and execution. If leadership is centralized at the top, execution slows down. This is about distributing leadership so that decision making happens faster. Teams operate with real autonomy, and accountability happens without micromanagement.
And finally, reinforcing leadership for the long game, because nothing you implement today will stick unless leadership is reinforced at every level, every day. This is about keeping leadership strong, even as the company scales, evolves, and inevitably changes.
We're the founders of Lucid.org, Sasha and Eric. And we've worked with companies that are scaling fast, but whose leadership, execution, and alignment aren't really keeping up.
And what we've seen over and over again is that most leadership struggles aren't about bad leaders, they're about leadership that wasn't built to scale. That's why we built this training, to move beyond leadership as a concept and make it something that actually works.
But here's the thing, we didn't just create this training to fix leadership inside companies. We created it because we've both been in those companies. We've both been the ones who started a job full of energy, excited to contribute, only to feel super drained 6 months in, wondering, is this really what work is supposed to feel like?
We've watched incredibly talented people burn out because they were stuck in broken systems. We've seen toxic leadership drive great employees away. And we've seen how companies normalize it because at the end of the day, people need jobs and leadership problems feel like something you just have to accept.
But we've decided we don't accept that, and we know we're not the only ones. I've personally watched my friends enter the workforce full of ideas and ambition, only to be crushed by poor leadership, misaligned teams, and cultures that take more than they give. We talk about it over drinks, we text about it in frustration, and somehow we've all just accepted that this is how work is.
But what if it wasn't? What if leadership wasn't something people survived, but something that made them better? What if organizations weren't places that drained people, but places that actually developed them?
And that's why we created Lucid.org. And while our product is about helping organizations measure and improve how they run, this training is where we actually implement that change. This is the backbone of our purpose to create a new standard for how companies operate and how leadership is applied inside those organizations.
So if you're here, it's because you're not interested in just maintaining the status quo. You want to build something better. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
So let's get started.